friends, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make neckties. I'm sure there's lots of great necktie tutorials out there, but I know some of you like when I do tutorials, and I happen to be making a bunch of neckties for my mission because I like to look very studious, and I also had a bunch of really cute cotton print fabrics that I wanted to use, so I decided to make myself an array of fabulous neckties. So here is how I did them. I started with tracing a pattern from one of my dad's old ties. Alright, so I disassembled a tie and I took a pattern, so I'm going to show you the pattern that I have. Now you can download a tie pattern and use that one for this tutorial, but I'm going based off of a tie that I disassembled. So first of all, let's talk about the form of the tie, because before you disassemble the tie, you might want to trace it first. So this first pattern piece actually comes in two pieces. This is the cotton batting. This is it just connects here with a slanted seam or mitered seam. But so if you don't know what cotton batting is, it's just this like really kind of fluffy but thin material, and it doesn't have to be cotton, but I just like when things are natural fibers. This is a layer of insertion that you will put in your tie later, and this kind of helps form the shape of the tie. And I understand not all ties have cotton batting or batting in them, so if your tie does not, it might help beforehand to trace the final shape of the tie onto some cardboard to kind of use as a form, because when you sew up the tie, you're going to need something inside of it to get the right shape. And this you actually like leave in the tie, but I'll get to that later. And then next I have these three pieces. So the first piece is the front of the tie, and as you can see, when I unpicked all the seams, it made it really big, and one of my sides is longer than the other. Up at the top, it connects to our second piece, and this piece goes in between these two pieces. So on the finished tie, you will have a seam here and a seam here. Now this part goes around your neck, and these two slanted seams will sit about halfway around your neck, because when you tie a tie, you want the short end to be half the size of the long end, so this will kind of help get the placement. Also, this piece measures the same width from here to here, so if your tie needs to be longer or shorter, you can just take some length out of that by just removing it from your pattern, or you can add some to your pattern to adjust the length of the tie. And then the last piece you should have is the shorter end of the tie. Also, when you unpick your tie, you probably have noticed that there is also this lining piece, and that it's just like a little triangle that stops about here. You can make a separate pattern for that, but what I just did was I just marked. I didn't want to disassemble the tie that I was using entirely, so I just measured the length of that and then just put a dotted line where it stopped on both of my tie end pattern pieces. So I hope that made sense. I cut out my batting, and I cut several because I wanted to make several ties, so you don't need this many. And then you're going to cut out your tie pattern from the lining and the fashion fabric. And then make sure you pay attention to the right and wrong sides of the fabric, because of the way, even though the tie is symmetrical, there is still that slanted seam, which means there is technically a right and a wrong side. I've been spoiled because most of the fabric I use is good on both sides, so I really need to pay attention to that when it happens, so yeah. Overlap the slanted edges of the cotton batting and top stitch those seams. We're going to start by sewing each end of the tie, and you sew the top and the bottom just the same, so I'm going to show you how to sew this on the back side of the tie. So you should have so this is your tie fabric piece, and actually, yeah, you want to start with the good side facing you, So that's the wrong side. This is the right side. And then you want the lining, and if your lining has a good side, you want the good side to be facing this good side. I'm gonna start by sewing the ends of the tie, and for me this is the trickiest part of sewing the tie. Some people say that sewing ties is easy, but it took me like 12 tries to get it right the first time, so don't feel bad if it doesn't work out. There's 2 ways to do this. You can just sew it with the good sides facing and just sew along this edge and with a 1/4 inch seam, and then you flip it inside out. But if you want to have that little lip that a lot of really nice ties have, there's a particular method that you need to use, and it's a little bit tricky, so I'm just going to talk you through it. Like I said, I have my good sides facing each other, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch lip or a 1/4 inch hem, which means all my seams need to be sewn with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So to attach the lining, we're going to start by sewing a seam here, and then here, and then here, and then here. So you're just going around, but not all at once. All right. You want your corners to be nice and crisp. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in and show you the magic. And you're actually gonna start by placing the lining double amount, a distance that is double the amount that you're going to be using for your hem allowance. So since I said I'm doing a 1/4 inch lip, I need to place it a 1/2 inch away from the hem. So I'm just going to line that up there. So this space between here is 1/2 inch. To make sure you get your seam allowance correct, you can measure a 1/4 inch and then just mark it on your fabric with some tailor's chalk. But most sewing machines have these little lines next to the pressure foot. And so this one is a 1/4 inch, this one's a 1/2 inch, and this one's 3/4 inches. So I know that if I sew, oh wait, no, this one's 1/2 inch. Sorry. If I match up the edge of it with the foot, there we go. So when I have my foot down, if I sew with the fabric just right along the edge of the foot, I'll get a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then if I sew it along this line, I'll get a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then 3/4 inches, and then 1 inch, and so forth. So that's how you do a seam allowance. Another important note before you start sewing is you want to stop a 1/4 inch before you get to the end of your fabric. So I've marked, so this last pin here is marking a 1/4 inch away from this edge. So I'm just gonna sew it like that. Okay, so I just finished sewing this seam. Now we're going to take the end of our lining and match it up with the edge of our fabric. And there should be a tiny little fold there, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But the key here is you want your 1/4 inch hem allowance right here now. Not a 1/2 inch this time, just a 1/4 inch. Okay, so here's what it looks like all pinned up. So I've got my 1/4 inch here, and then I've got my 1/4 inch here between the pin and the edge. And then you should have like a little pleat right there. And I think it's best if you make this fold face towards the tip of the tie. Okay, I lied. You want that one facing away from the tip. Okay, so starting right where I left off with my last threads, I'm just going to start sewing. Okay, so here's my new seam. Alright, so this next step is a bit tricky. I'm gonna try my best to get a good shot of it. So now what you want to do is you want to sew, we're sewing this seam, right? So start by folding the tie in half from the tip of this fashion fabric here, and try and pin it. You're gonna try and pin it right where you left off with your stitchery. Here's what it looks like all pinned. Once again, I'm stopping a 1/4 inch from the edge, and this is what the top looks like. So This time you want your fold to be facing away from your sewing, so you're just going to start sewing there to the end. All right, that one's finished. Now you may notice that there's some extra fabric right here. Don't panic, just cut it off because it doesn't matter. And now what you're going to do is you're going to mimic this same fold on the back here on this side. And so what I like to do, so if you just take the lining and kind of peel it away from the fashion fabric, you fold it up and then you fold it, you pinch it down again. And so when you have this fold, guess what that measurement will be? 1/4 inch. You're very smart. Okay, except mine is not yet 1/4 inch. It needs some adjustment. And you can also check by folding the tie in half and seeing if it's about the same size as the other one. Alright, that's all pinned. Once again, making sure the fold is facing towards the tip. And then we're just going to sew it all the way to the end. So this time we're not leaving 1/4 inch gap. Alright, now before we turn this inside out and press it, there is one more little stitch that we need to do. And we're going to do it by folding the tie in half again, so that the lining is on the inside. And then we're just going to stitch straight. I got muted here, so you're just going to sew a straight line at the spot that I'm pointing at. This is what it looks like. Okay, so here's what it looks like after it's all been pressed. The lining is a little bit bigger than it should be, but that's actually pretty normal. When I picked apart that other tie to take the pattern, the lining was a bit bigger, so I'm not too worried about that. You can kind of press most of the wrinkles towards the end and then hide them when you flip the tie over. But at least we have this really nice fancy hem. Sew the bias seams of your fashion fabric together. So now the whole tie should be joined together. Insert the batting, and you're going to press down the tie around the batting. When you press the tie around the batting, you're going to have one with a raw edge, and then you're going to have one that doesn't have a raw edge. So make sure that the side that doesn't have the raw edge is already pressed down once, so that when it's overlapped, you'll have the raw edge here and then the side with the not raw edge on top, so that you won't have any fraying, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Okay, so now we're going to slip stitch the tie up. So I have some black thread. It's a really long piece of thread because you want it to go through the whole tie if you want to unpick it later. And you can do it in sections if you want to, but I try to get it all in one go. So I'm gonna start by unfolding the tie and then inserting my knotted thread right where those two pieces overlap. And this will just kind of tack it down to the lining so that you can't like put your hand up through here. I mean, unless you wanted to, but you know, you do you. And I'm gonna bring it through the side that's on the bottom. And basically the trick with the slip stitch is you want to just go through the first layer of the top fabric so that the needle is not on the other side. And then bring it down through this fabric, and just as long as you don't have the needle poking through the outside of the tie, you should be good. And then just go up, and then down, and then up, and then down. And you can do a couple at once. And I guess it looks like I got the needle through there, but sometimes you just don't care, do ya? And then just keep doing that until you get to the end of the tie. Then taking a small rectangle of material, sew a little tube, flip it inside out, and trim it so that it's the proper length to make a loop for the skinny end of your tie to go through. You may hand stitch that into place, and you're done. And now I will show you my entire closet of ties. Well, friends, that's all for today. I hope you really enjoyed. I love having my own tie closet now. I think it's fun. Ties are pretty tricky to master, so like if you don't get it the first time, that's fine. It took me like 6 tries to get it right the first time, and they're still not perfect. But yes, getting that nice, crisp hem allowance edge is very difficult. So it just comes with practice. I recommend starting with some sturdy cotton material that always works the best, or that always seems to work the best. Anyway, I love you all, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and I miss you. Na zwiedzenie. Love you, bye. Adio. Adio. Adios. Auf Wiedersehen. How many languages do I know goodbye in? Bonsoir. That's not goodbye. Love you, bye. My tea is going to get cold. That's actually the perfect temperature. Why am I like this? And these excuse me, showing the tips. Whoops. Don't mind me as I finagle my camera every which way. I think I hear pterodactyl noises. I don't know what's going on. Come back. It was clearly upset with me. All right, now we've got all our seams sewn. Wait, I forgot one step.
Look at you go. Nice. Cool.
Ow. I just dropped the needle and it went like right into my foot. Is that the chicken?
Delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor. Delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor.